This is a Dynamite Network podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the Dynamic Duel Podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Marvelous Joe.
And I'm his twin brother, Johnny DC.
And this is the episode where we review the latest Marvel Studios cinematic release, Deadpool and Wolverine. Was it awesome? I'm not going to say right now. I'll let you know my thoughts later on this episode.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It was awesome.
Of course it was.
It was pretty damn awesome. But yeah, I can't wait to talk about it. Before we get into that, there was a shit ton of San Diego Comic-Con news to come out this past week for Marvel and DC. Not all of it great news. In fact, most of it was really disappointing news. So I'm really glad that Deadpool and Wolverine was a good movie. Otherwise, I'd be pretty damn depressed right now. But we're going to be talking about how the Russo Brothers are attached to direct Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. We learned that Robert Downey Jr. has been cast as Dr. Doom. I'm still not over it. Joker Folie got an official trailer. DC Studios unveiled their new logo. Fantastic Four announced their subtitle for the film, First Steps. We got the Penguin official trailer, and we got an official teaser for Creature Commandos. So a lot to get through.
As always, we list our segment times in our episode description, so feel free to check out the show notes if you want to skip ahead to a particular topic. Our artificially intelligent duel simulator, AJ9K, has a quick message for our listeners, so listen up.
Why, hello there. Do you want even more from this podcast? Then become a part of the Dynamic Duel community on Patreon, where you can choose from 3 tiers. The Dynamic 2.0 tier gives you access to our Discord chat server, the Fantastic 4 tier gives you 2 bonus episodes each month, and the X-Force tier makes you an executive producer of this show. Lastly, the Dynamite Podcast Network tier lets you create your own podcast using this Monte Carlo simulator. Johnny and Joe will help you develop your show, provide graphic support and consultation, and get you simulation results. Pitch the twins your ideas via email at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com. Check it out at patreon.com/dynamicduel. Pip pip cheerio.
Thanks, AJ9K, and thanks to everyone who supports the podcast. Guys, be sure to tune into the other shows in the Dynamite Podcast Network this week, including Max Destruction, which pits your favorite action heroes from film and television against each other. This week, hosts Ken and Scotty are reviewing the Deadpool and Wolverine movie, just like us.
On the Central World podcast, host Zachary Hepburn speculates on fights between fan-favorite anime and manga characters. The show is currently on a season hiatus, but it's coming back real soon, guys, and Zach's kicking things off with a matchup between Hiei of Yu Yu Hakusho and Yuta Okatsu of Jujutsu Kaisen.
And on the Console Combat podcast, hosts John and Dean find out who would win in fights between popular video game characters. In yesterday's episode, they reviewed the 1993 Super Mario Bros. Movie.
Visit dynamicpodcasts.com or click the link in our show notes to listen to all of the shows in the Dynamite Podcast Network.
But with that out of the way,
quick to the No Prize! A No Prize is an award Marvel used to give out to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award that we post on Instagram for the person that we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week.
2 weeks ago, we asked you guys, what has been your favorite Disney Plus original series from Marvel Studios so far? And we got a lot of answers. Let's go ahead and run down our honorable mentions as well as the No Prize winner. Our first honorable mention goes to Daniel Alonso, who said,
all right, so best show on Disney Plus. Man, I don't know how you guys don't like Moon Knight. That show is amazing. I didn't grow up with the comics or anything, so that was my first introduction. And you can't beat that suit. I actually really love that story. The fighting was amazing. Man, that's the best show on Disney Plus. That's a Disney original. Hands down. Moon Knight, dude. So good.
Now imagine if they had actually adapted the story from the comics. How much better it would have been then.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys aren't familiar with the Moon Knight character from the comics, I definitely recommend going all the way back to, episode 2 in our Batman vs. Moon Knight duel episode. The show was not bad. Like, acting-wise, special effects-wise, action-wise, it was pretty cool. I just thought it was pretty inconsistent with the rest of the MCU.
And inconsistent with the source material. I didn't dislike it. Even though a lot of the story was original to the series, they weren't bad elements, you know. It was still fairly interesting. Not as interesting as the comic books, but interesting enough to kind of develop a following for the show.
Great answer, Daniel. Our next honorable mention goes to Cat Stevenson, who said,
Hi guys, it's Kat again, and I really want to say that the best Disney Plus show is Hawkeye. I know a lot of people are going to say like Loki, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but Hawkeye was so good. With multiple really good character introductions, less reintroductions, with Kingpin, Echo, Kate Bishop, really, really well done. I loved the Christmas undertones. Everything about this show was amazing. I loved the action, I loved the acting, everything was really good.
Yeah, Hawkeye was pretty good. I really liked the Christmas setting. I think it really made the show stand apart and introduced a lot of fun elements with Hawkeye, such as the whole I'll be home for Christmas theme, workshopping his own trick arrows in the vein of like Home Alone or something like that. Yeah, Hawkeye was a lot of fun.
And definitely deserved for a character that never received his own film. A lot of the story revolved around Kate Bishop, but I thought it was a great passing of the torch, or bow, as it were.
Yeah. So great answer, Kat. Our next honorable mention goes to Travis Herndon, who said,
What's up, dudes? Travis here. Shout out to my other twin. So my answer had to be Werewolf by Night. I was very surprised when they announced that. To finally see Werewolf by Night, Man-Thing, and Elsa Bloodstone within the MCU was just sick. It was awesome. This just opens the door to the supernatural part of the MCU, which was more my favorite sort of element within Marvel. So yeah, Werewolf by Night was my favorite.
Yeah, I loved Werewolf by Night as a Halloween time special presentation by Marvel. It's to this date probably the most unique thing that Marvel Studios has done with its short run time, its black and white cinematography, the clear homages to past horror films. I thought it was just incredibly fascinating.
Yeah, there's been a number of projects that Marvel has done post-Endgame, like Werewolf by Night, like Eternals, like Moon Knight, that they really haven't picked up on. But I think of all of those things, I would love to see them run with Werewolf by Night and the world that sets up.
Yeah, like the dark underworld of monsters and demons and stuff like that.
Yeah, and monster hunting. It was awesome.
I want to give a quick shout out to Abner O'Terry, who gave the answer of What If? And Kingpin. Someone did a really solid impression of Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin, who gave the answer of Echo. But the winner of this week's No Prize is Scott Camacho, who said,
Although Loki is my favorite, I'm going to have to give it to WandaVision, only because they did a great job of the different universes within the episodes, and then finally ending it with the good movie to follow. So I think out of all of them, that's pretty much the one that nails it for me. So I'm going to go with WandaVision.
Yeah, WandaVision was the first Marvel Studios Disney Plus original series to come out. And in some ways, to me, it still feels like one of the most special because not only did it have the unique element of riffing on classic television series throughout the decades, but towards the end, it also felt really cinematic in that you were like watching a movie on the small screen. And yeah, it was hugely influential on the greater MCU, you know, spawning movies like Multiverse of Madness and the upcoming Agatha All Along. It was just really well made, and that's likely why Matt Shakman was hired to direct the Fantastic Four First Steps movie coming up.
Yeah, I don't think I was the biggest fan of WandaVision when we reviewed it, but I do have to admire it for its artistry. Like, my favorite Disney Plus series is Loki, and I'm kind of surprised no one gave that as their, like, definitive answer. But WandaVision, I would say, is more unique and very ambitious.
Absolutely. So great answer, Scotty. You win this week's No Prize. If you, the listener, want a shot at winning your own No Prize, stay tuned to later on this episode when we'll be asking another question of the week. And now that that's done,
on to the news.
All right, this past week we had the San Diego Comic-Con event in which we get a ton of news from Marvel and DC regarding their upcoming film, comic book, and television movie slates. There wasn't a whole lot of news, I feel like, this year that came out of San Diego Comic-Con, and the news that did come out kind of pissed me off. I'm not gonna lie. But let's go ahead and get started. going through the rundown of everything that happened. I think one of the biggest major news items we received was that the fifth Avengers movie, Avengers the Kang Dynasty, has been renamed to Avengers Doomsday. When I saw that, I actually got really excited because I think a lot of us were expecting that Kang was going to get replaced due to the off-screen drama regarding the actor Jonathan Majors, who plays the character of Kang. Now, if it were me, I wish they would have just recast Kang. I don't think anybody would have minded that.
Seriously.
But it seems like they're going in a completely different direction
Ugh.
by going with Doctor Doom instead of Kang the Conqueror. And that normally would really thrill me until I heard about the casting. But before I talk about that, we got release dates for the next two Avengers movies. So Avengers Doomsday is going to come out in 2 years, May 2026, which seems really damn soon. It's likely going to be filmed back to back with Avengers Secret Wars, which comes out May 2027, just due to the proximity of those two release dates.
Yeah, and of course that's what the Russos did with Infinity War and Endgame. Those two films came out almost a year apart, and I believe they were filmed simultaneously.
Yet we haven't had an Avengers film for about 6 years now, and we won't have another one for 2 years. The Avengers are the crown jewel of the MCU, those movies. So it'll be nice to see them come back and get those epic team stories where we have a lot of characters involved. They're always a lot of fun. So I'm really excited for these upcoming two movies, even though I have no idea now what Doomsday is going to be about. But let's talk about Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom, as I think most people know, especially Marvel fans, is probably Marvel's biggest villain. And I'm talking about bigger than Thanos in terms of, popularity and threat level to Earth's heroes on a consistent basis. Thanos is very threatening, but he's a cosmic villain that makes fewer appearances than Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom is huge. He's primarily a Fantastic Four villain, but he's posed a threat to almost every single Marvel hero throughout his span in the Marvel comics.
He was the inspiration for Darth Vader.
Right. Was he?
Yeah.
I heard that was a rumor. I don't know if that's actually true, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah,
I believe it, for sure. The mask that he wears, very intimidating. He has his own country. He's the monarch of Latveria. He's a master of occult magic, similar to Doctor Strange, but he's also a technological genius, much like Reed Richards or Tony Stark. So he's very formidable. A lot of people have been looking forward to an accurate depiction of the comic book character ever since, before the 2005 Fantastic Four movie, because the Doom we got in that one sucked. They gave him bioelectricity powers. The Doctor Doom that was in the 2015 Phantom Four Stick movie also sucked. He was like some kind of weird telekinetic mutant birthed out of the negative zone. They never got him right. And so with the advent of the Fantastic Four movie coming out, a lot of people were really anticipating who they were going to cast as Doctor Doom, whether he show up in Fantastic Four or in Secret Wars or whatever. And what's really sad is that all of these Doctor Doom fans are still going to have to wait for an accurate depiction of the comic book character, because fucking Robert Downey Jr. is going to play Victor Von Doom. I don't know what is happening. It's such a dumbass idea. So basically you have one of the most beloved and most popular actors to portray a Marvel Studios character coming back, but not as that character, as a completely different, perhaps variant of Doctor Doom, or perhaps, they're taking a cue from one of the comic book storylines where Doctor Doom became Iron Man. And note that I said Doctor Doom became Iron Man in the comics. It was never really the other way around, outside of like a couple issues where an alternate universe Tony Stark became Doctor Doom. And maybe that's what they're doing here. I think the only way this could possibly work is if Robert Downey Jr. is Victor Von Doom in the alternate universe that the Fantastic Four come from, because we know that the Fantastic Four movie is taking place in an alternate universe. And that's why we're getting like a female Silver Surfer and everything like that. That's the only way I see this working, but there's no way in hell I will accept Robert Downey Jr. being Victor Von Doom in the primary 616 cinematic universe. It just doesn't work.
No, it boggles the mind, honestly. I remember when we were talking about Silver Surfer and how she was going to be a female, and it was like, okay, does Norrin Radd not exist in the 616? And in the same way, does that mean Victor Von Doom does not exist in the 616? It's just weird to me. I feel like what they're trying to do is make it weird for the 616 heroes when they see Victor Von Doom and they're like, oh, what, Tony? Oh, I'm so conflicted. But it's stupid, I feel like. I just think he's really miscast. When I think of Doctor Doom, I think of someone very sinister and very cunning And not that RDJ can't play that, but he's known for playing these fast-talking, wisecracking characters, and I really don't want to see that in Doctor Doom.
No, absolutely not. No, he's not Doctor Doom. Maybe they'll alter his voice. Maybe they'll cover up his face. I mean, they should cover up his face. You never really see Doom's face. And if you do, it's allegedly scarred to hell from when he burned his face when he put the mask on for the first time, as the legend goes. But even if we don't see his face, I still don't want Robert Downey Jr. to play Doctor Doom.
I mean, that's even more of a reason to not cast him, because you could literally cast anybody. You could literally cast anyone with a great voice who could act behind a mask, and there you go. It does not have to be someone who was notorious for making an insane amount of money on these Marvel films.
It feels like creative bankruptcy, right? The MCU is kind of in shambles right now because over the past couple of years, they haven't been getting as much of a return on their films. So it's like a big marketing move in that they're getting their biggest star back in an effort to entice viewers back to the theater. But it's not the right call. There are so many great actors out there that could have played Doctor Doom that would have gotten me so excited.
I did not watch Marvel movies to see Robert Downey Jr. I watched Marvel movies to see Tony Stark. And that's all I'm going to see when I'm watching Avengers Doomsday, which, can I just mention, is a horrible fucking title? Doomsday? Really? The Superman villain? I know it's not based off of that, but it's like a movie coming out that's called Justice League, Doctor Doom.
Exactly. Well, they should have just called it Avengers Doom, I think. That would have been better. Doomsday, yeah, of course, is a DC villain, one of the most popular DC villains, the guy that fucking killed Superman. I just don't know what they're doing over at the MCU, especially with this Robert Downey Jr. casting choice. And that brings us to our question of the week. What the fuck?
Record your answer at dynamicduel.com by clicking on the red microphone button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, which will prompt you to leave us a voicemail. Your message could be up to 30 seconds long, and don't forget to leave your name in case we include you on the podcast. We'll pick our favorite answer and award that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to Instagram. Be sure to answer before August 3rd. Can't wait to hear you guys' answers. In DC news and good news, we got the official trailer for Joker Folie, the sequel to the Joker film, which was fantastic. A lot of people aren't looking forward to this Joker sequel because they don't like the idea of a musical, but the more I see from the movie, the more I'm falling in love with the concept, the more I just am in awe of the cinematography and the acting performances that it looks like we're going to get for this movie. It looks like it's going to be a masterpiece.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry, what?
Calm down, okay? It looks mid at best.
Oh my gosh. If this doesn't look like a masterpiece, I don't know what a masterpiece looks like. And clearly, you don't either.
Sure I do.
So then you recognize this looks like one.
No, it doesn't.
Well, then you don't know. You don't know what you're talking about. You could just sit this one out. The trailer starts off with Arthur Fleck being escorted, I think, to a courtroom. And on the radio, you hear different voices talking about him. The first time I watched this trailer, I watched it without subtitles, which I like to do because sometimes subtitles can give away different lines before you hear them. So I had no idea that one of those voices was Harvey Dent. I had no idea Harvey Dent was going to be in this movie. That gets me so much more pumped up to see it, because you have to imagine if he's involved in the courtroom scenes, something's going to happen to him, and that's going to be wild to see how that happens in this Joker universe, because it's just so surprising and violent.
Do you think Joker's going to throw acid in his face or something like that?
I don't know, him or Harley Quinn. Maybe he gets shot in the face. I have no idea. I just imagine it's going to be very intense. We get to hear Joaquin Phoenix singing for the first time in this movie, along with Lady Gaga as well. They're not coming across as like very polished singers, which is interesting because I thought like the musical numbers were going to be much bigger. We haven't really seen anything like that yet in these trailers, though I do imagine they will be in the film in Arthur's sort of imagined sequences, you know, in his mind. And we see a number of those sequences in this trailer, like when him and Harley are on stage, or, you know, when they're dancing in the courtroom or on the rooftops and stuff like that. But in this trailer, you also get a sense of the origin of how Harley Quinn became enamored with Arthur Fleck. You know, she saw him on TV for the first time, and he spoke to her in the same way that the Joker has spoken to a number of people, particularly in Gotham City. But also, you see that spilling out into the real world, where in like political protests, you'll see people wearing Joker masks or clown makeup in the same way that people used to wear the Guy Fawkes mask from V for Vendetta. But it's believable, you know, that someone like Harley Quinn would be influenced by him. It does look like she is a patient in Arkham Asylum, though my theory is still that she's manipulating the Joker. We'll see if that's a valid theory or not. She definitely influences the Joker and makes him, you know, feel like he's a star if he didn't feel like that already. And when, you know, one of the guards played by Brendan Gleeson mentions that. And I think that totally makes sense that the Joker would think that he was a star based on the ending of the first Joker movie, how he just stood up on that police car and felt like seen for the very first time.
He's conflating fame with infamy.
Sort of. Like, people are influenced by him in this weird way. And yeah, it could be infamous. The guy is a violent killer, but like people were praising him around that cop car. So he probably feels like he's doing the world a favor in some weird way. I don't know, maybe drawing attention to people who feel unseen. I don't know. The first movie, of course, was a sympathetic look at the Joker. So I imagine they'll continue to run with this. And that's kind of horrifying. I agree, but it makes for damn good cinema. The music in this trailer, so damn good. Using Frank Sinatra and Judy Garland, it really gives you the vibe of what kind of musical numbers they'll be doing in the movie. Like these classic mid-century tunes, they're just nailing the tone. They're crushing the tone.
All it is tone. That's all it is.
But damn, that tone though.
Yeah, there's not much substance to these trailers. You know, it's like you get a line here or there, and then you get a crescendo swelling of music.
Yeah.
And you see the Joker in makeup and stuff like that. And then you see the title, and then it's over. Like, you really have no idea too much of what the overall story is going to be or how they're going to make it interesting. Like, is it a trial movie? Is it a romance? All of the above? Who knows?
Yes, all of the above, I imagine. Honestly, I'm sold on tone. Like, I don't want to know too much of the story. Like, if you could get me with the performances, if you could get me with the music, if you could get me with a hint of a story, if you could get me with the revelation that Harvey Dent is going to be in this movie, you got me.
Check your expectations, man.
Fuck you. It's too late. I'm too far gone. There's no hope. I just need to see the movie.
Well, it comes out in just a little over 2 months.
And I will be there day one. I honestly hope to get like an early screening for this. I want to see it as many times as I can in theaters before we have to review it. And I'm really looking forward to it.
Mind you, you did not like the first Joker movie the first time you saw it.
That's
so
very true. That's very true.
Yeah, you better watch yourself.
This time I'm not going to take all my coworkers so I could feel like uneasy and almost like embarrassed. It's just me going in. And I love how these trailers are letting me know what to expect. Now, the Joker trailer came out before Comic-Con so that it could play in front of the Deadpool movies. At Comic-Con, there wasn't too much of a presence from DC Studios. James Gunn wasn't there, but he did record a video to unveil the new logo for DC Studios and DC in general. I say new, but it's really not. It's just a return to the classic DC Bullet logo that was designed by the renowned graphic designer Milton Glaser.
Now, let's be real. It's a step down from what came previously. The existing DC Comics logo, I thought, was a great modern interpretation of the Bullet logo. You know, it simplified it and made it really clean and bold. Returning to the logo that they used in the 80s and 90s seems dumb.
Which was my initial reaction, because I was under the impression that it was only DC Studios that was going to be using this logo, and not the comics, not the merch, not the video games, or anything else, which I thought was really bad for brand synergy. Like, you don't want one division using one logo for DC and other divisions not using that same logo. I do really like DC's most recent logo. I agree with you. I thought it was a great interpretation of not only the DC Bullet, but a lot of other logos from DC's past. It was perfection, in my opinion. That said, my second favorite DC logo is absolutely the Bullet. It's the one that was around when I first started reading comics. So I don't know if nostalgia plays a factor, but yeah, the design is not bad.
Well, I mean, it's inferior, but I understand why they needed to do this, because They needed to make it clear to the general public that DC is moving in a new direction, that they're like establishing a new cinematic universe and whatnot. But the issue is that DC has rebranded like 50 fucking times in the last couple decades.
Yeah.
Right? You had the swoosh logo. You had the stupid like fold over logo. That was a really bad logo. But then you also had, the most recent modern DC logo, which was fantastic. Because of all these changes, I think DC knew that they couldn't really afford to go in another new direction and still maintain that solid brand awareness. In that regard, they had to go back to something that had come previously. And so they went with their classic logo.
Something that is arguably more iconic. When I talk to people about DC Comics, I talk about Watchmen, I talk about Dark Knight Returns. All of these things came out during the DC Bullet logo era. So it's not surprising that they would want to remind people of that and be like, hey, remember when you loved DC Comics? Well, get ready to love it again, because here we are. I do agree that they probably wanted something new. I don't know if they needed it, but yeah, you're right. It would have signaled to everyone that, hey, this is a brand new era. And there's a lot of different companies who are going back to their old retro logos, like fast food chains like Pizza Hut and Burger King. They're all going back to the 70s and 80s. So, I guess it's just DC's turn. I don't love it. I wish it never happened, but if it had to happen, you could have done worse logos than the Bullet.
All I know is that Marvel better not do this shit, because I'll be pissed.
What, you don't like the classic Marvel logo with the lettering on top of the giant M with yellow comics written across it?
It's fine. That's the logo that they had when I grew up reading the comics and everything like that, but it's been improved upon. And I don't want to see them doing a DC.
Oh, you mean being badass?
No, I mean fucking up.
You guys are fucking up plenty. Don't act like you're not.
Speaking of fucking up, back to Marvel news, we got the first subtitle announced for the Fantastic Four movie. A lot of us just thought that this upcoming MCU Fantastic Four film would just be called Fantastic Four or The Fantastic Four, but no, it's going to be called Fantastic Four First Steps. And the title treatment kind of makes it seem like a kid's cartoon. And I understand that's probably due in part to the 60s sitcom vibe that they're kind of going with, but I don't know why they needed a subtitle for this movie. It makes it sound like the Fantastic Four are learning how to walk. Now, the only way that this subtitle works, I think, and really it could work on multiple levels. First steps could allude to the Fantastic Four like taking their first steps on the moon or something like that. If in fact, this is the 60s and part of their space exploration where they run into their cosmic ray accident is part of the space race or something like that. I can see that working. But I think more than that, in order for this subtitle to work, a big part of the storyline needs to revolve around Reed and Sue becoming parents for the first time. Because then you have first steps alluding to Franklin and maybe Valeria as well, as their children taking their first steps.
I feel like Valeria is a bit of a stretch. Maybe all you need is Franklin, but even then, that seems really soon. I guess it is a way to differentiate this Fantastic Four film from other Fantastic Four films, in that Reed and Sue would become parents and maybe make this film feel more family-oriented. So it's not a terrible idea. I just don't think it needed the subtitle.
It didn't. I'm not a fan of the subtitle. Fantastic Four First Steps. I don't ever want to call it that.
Okay. Can I just say that Marvel has really been sucking lately when it comes to subtitles? I think it started with Homecoming. I was like, what? Homecoming? Yeah. No, just stop with the sucky ass subtitles. Give us like real subtitles that we actually want. Brave New World is not a bad one, but asterisk? I guess that's not really a subtitle. It's just weird.
Oh, you're talking about the asterisk that comes at the end of the Thunderbolts title?
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows what's going on there? That's weird.
I feel like I'm complaining a lot for a subtitle, but it just confuses me, and I hate being confused, and people really shouldn't be confused at this stage in Marvel, because they need wins. Like, they can't really afford bad news. I mean, maybe they can, because Deadpool and Wolverine totally killed, but that could be forgotten so easily with one more bad Marvel movie.
Yeah, goodwill only lasts as long as your most recent announcement or decision or movie. I've been online a lot, and it seems like the majority opinions regarding the First Steps subtitle and Robert Downey Jr.'s return as Dr. Doom are mostly negative, and deservedly so. I hope Marvel listens to the fans, because making them happy is how they make money.
You know what makes me happy? The new Penguin trailer. Everyone who's been listening to the podcast knows that I love the Batman, that I've really been looking forward to this show and how it expands the world of Matt Reeves, the Batman. I think Colin Farrell totally nailed the performance of the Penguin. I still can't believe it's him in this role. And it looks like this show is going to be one epic crime drama of how the Penguin rises to power. We see him being heavily influenced by his mother in this trailer, who makes him feel like he should be the one in charge of Gotham's underworld. And the trailer does a really good job of making the Penguin appear like a threat. You see him freaking stab someone. You see him shoot people with machine guns. You see him plow into people with his car. It's freaking crazy.
Yeah, it looks a lot more violent and action heavy than most other crime shows and films. Like something like The Sopranos, sure, it's violent, but I wouldn't say there's a lot of like action. You know, the Penguin seems to have a lot of action.
Yeah, I think we mentioned that in our review of the last trailer that they put out, and how the like explosions and stuff sets it a step above action-wise other crime dramas that you see on networks like HBO. This is grounded, but it's still very much oriented in that comic book world.
Yeah, it looks more like Heat as opposed to something like The Wire.
Yeah, I can see that. This trailer also gives us a really good idea of who is going to be Oswald's main antagonist in the show, and that's going to be Sophia Falcone, the daughter of Carmine Falcone, who we saw get shot and killed in the Batman movie. It looks like both of those characters are going to be fighting to see who comes out on top and rule Gotham's criminal underworld. But the wrench thrown into the mix is that Sophia Falcone was apparently an inmate at Arkham, which definitely makes things interesting. It looks like we're going to get to see the inside of Arkham, and I'm wondering who else we're going to see there.
Maybe we'll see the Riddler. Maybe we'll see the Joker again.
Maybe. That would be incredible. It's probably unlikely. That feels like a pipe dream, but who knows? We got a release date with this trailer, finally. It's going to be debuting on HBO. They're really branding it with HBO instead of just Max on September 19th.
Do you know how many episodes it's going to be?
8 episodes. So we'll be reviewing this like in mid-November. Also coming out this year in December is Creature Commandos, which we got the first teaser trailer for during Comic-Con. Of course, this is the first official project in James Gunn's DCU cinematic universe, but it really looks like it's stemming off of the events that happened in Peacemaker Season 1, with the outing of Amanda Waller as the head of Task Force X, and it looks like here she's kind of doing more of the same, except instead of creating a Suicide Squad, she's creating the Creature Commandos, aka Task Force M, which is somewhat in keeping with the comics. They didn't call it Task Force M there, but they called it Project M.
Interesting. The show looks really good, actually. I was kind of blown away by how quirky everything feels, how great the animation was, and how cool the character designs are.
And the voice cast is awesome. And the great thing is that the cast will also be playing live action versions of these characters in the films. So you have David Harbour as Frankenstein, you have Sean Gunn as Weasel, who of course played the character in The Suicide Squad, directed by James Gunn a few years ago. Alan Tudyk is Dr. Phosphorus, Indira Varma is the Bride, but of course you also have Viola Davis as Amanda Waller, Frank Grillo as Rick Flag Sr., and Steve Agee, who's returning as John Economist. The teaser trailer we got was not very long. It was only a minute and 30 seconds. We didn't get a great idea of what the story is, but it looks to be in keeping pretty much with the Suicide Squad, just a little bit more monstrous, as it were.
Well, it sounds like they're fighting Nazis, according to G.I. Robot's line.
Right, yeah. I love the fact that these characters are getting their own show. The Creature Commandos have always been a really cool team to me, and I love the fact that James Gunn is kind of continuing his Suicide Squad kind of zany character team group dynamic, because he did a phenomenal job with the Suicide Squad film. Again, the show is coming out in December. I'm not sure how many episodes there are for it, but we're definitely going to review it.
Well, if it starts in December, it's probably going to lead into January, which means that the show probably won't qualify for a Brothers Award. It'll probably go into the 2025 awards.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely going into January. Absolutely.
But I think that does it for all the news for this episode. So let's go ahead and get into our main event, where we reviewed the latest Marvel Studios movie release, Deadpool and Wolverine. right, Deadpool and Wolverine was directed by Sean Levy and stars Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman, Emma Corrin, and Matthew McFadden. It's one of the most anticipated movies of the year, the only film that Marvel Studios is releasing this year, but did it deliver on the hype and expectations? Well, John, Adam, what do you guys think?
I would say it did. Not just did it massively lived up to the hype, my man.
What? Welcome back to the show, guys. Longtime listeners will know John and Adam Speas. They were the hosts of the Blast from Our Past podcast. They are the hosts of the Throwback Trivia Takedown podcast. And longtime listeners know them from our reviews of X-Men Origins Wolverine, Batman Forever, and Batman the Movie. Both of them have been or are executive producers of Dynamic Duel. They are the self-professed biggest Deadpool fans in the world, and I believe it. And they are also the most requested guests from our fans. To this day, people still ask when we're going to do another review with Adam and John. And I couldn't think of a better movie than the one that probably ends the journey that was started with X-Men Origins Wolverine. John, Adam, glad to have you guys. How you guys been doing?
Been doing great. We just both had to body slide over from the BFOP Network podcast verse, if you will. We've been doing great. We actually got to hang out with y'all just a couple weeks ago, which was wonderful in person. I was very excited for y'all to invite us for this amazing movie, which I have no doubt will be the first 6 of all time on your ratings. 6 out of 5. That's obvious.
So I want to jump in real quick and give a quick spoiler warning to the listeners. This is a spoiler review. So don't ruin the surprises for yourself. If you haven't seen the movie yet, definitely go see the movie. It's absolutely worth the ticket price. Regardless of end quality, the movie itself is a big deal in that it brought Hugh Jackman out of retirement, who had hung up his claws about 7 years ago after the Logan movie. John, Adam, I want to get real quick your reactions to the Deadpool 3 announcement teaser that Ryan Reynolds did that announced that Wolverine would be in the movie.
I was as pleasantly surprised as everyone else. I didn't think it was something that was beyond the realm of possibility because, money talks and never say never. Patrick Stewart also said that he would never play Professor X again. And then we saw him a few years later in Multiverse of Madness. So the truth is any story that's worth their weight is going to entice an actor to any role regardless. Even I heard James McAvoy was asked, would you ever return? He said, listen, if the story is there, if it's a story worth telling, I'm in. And I think especially actors who've been around for a while where maybe money isn't necessarily the biggest draw, it's creativity. If you come to them with something really, really good, they're probably in.
I came in with a whole heart of optimism. Obviously with Deadpool in the comics, him and Wolverine have a very interesting relationship. It's not that buddy-buddy relationship that he had with Cable, which honestly I think they botched in Deadpool 2 a little bit. I did not like Cable being as kill hungry as he was in that movie. But time and time again in Deadpool 1 and 2, Hugh Jackman and Wolverine was brought up by Deadpool. That first movie, you take the mask off, you see the Hugh Jackman mask on top. He was obviously a driving factor for creativity for Ryan Reynolds. And so seeing them sitting together, him walking behind, oh, hey, Hugh, you in for it? And he's like, yeah, sure. Chills, man. It got me super excited. That's not without hesitation because we all saw Logan and Logan is a phenomenal film. Could they make it work? It's all about the story.
Yeah, for sure. That totally makes sense. I remember seeing that announcement trailer a couple years ago and just being pumped, bouncing off the walls. I think I'm still riding that energy from that announcement. And it's definitely taking me through all the disappointing Comic-Con news. The fact that this movie was good. And I definitely think lived up to the expectations because my big takeaway from the movie was that it 110% delivered on the dynamic between the main characters and gave us scenes that we've always wanted to see as fans. And even some scenes that we never knew we always wanted to see.
It's so weird because Ryan Reynolds, he definitely has his finger on the pulse marketing wise in terms of what fans wants. This is the movie that Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness should have been. This is the multiverse movie that all of the fans have been asking for. They delivered in such a big way with all the different cameos and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was ironic that at the end of the film, Deadpool was like, can we cool it with the multiverse thing?
Oh, yeah.
When, in reality, he's probably done it better than any other film has thus far.
It's one of those kind of things where because they did it so well in this film, it kind of adds validation to some of the older ones. Go like, okay, I kind of had to sift through the shit to get to where it actually makes sense.
For sure. Yeah, like 20 years of shit, right? I mean, like they went back to the Elektra movie. They went back to the Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah.
They gave us the Channing Tatum Gambit movie that we never actually got to see. That was canceled.
And their writing and the allusions to that, you know, the meta side of that was so perfectly done.
And something you could only have done in a Deadpool movie. Yeah. Any other movie, it doesn't make sense. It seems cheesy. This movie, it works.
Right. Yeah. All those like meta in jokes where you not only have to know the films themselves, but probably some of the behind the scenes stuff as well. Like how Wesley Snipes was not a fan of Ryan Reynolds. And he was like, I don't like you.
Yeah.
And in this movie, he's like, you never did. That was so good. Like in a way, this movie almost makes Blade Trinity better because it gives you some closure to that whole shitstorm. And like it never felt good watching Blade Trinity, not only because it wasn't a good movie, but because you knew all the behind the scenes drama and stuff like that. So it was nice to get a lot of closure. And I think that's one of the best things that this movie has going for it, in addition to all the fan service. But speaking of the fan service, how did you guys feel about the movie leaving the theater?
I had a shit-eating grin from beginning to end. First time I saw it with my wife, and we walked out, and she, who knows very little, she knows basically just from marrying me, you know, some tiny things about Deadpool, and she enjoyed the film. And I just turned to her and said, I fucking loved that. And then the second time I went with a buddy from work who is a huge Batman fan. And we've had some fun little Deadpool versus Batman things. And I talked to him and I was like, so what'd you think? He was like, yeah, that's better than any recent Batman movie. And I'm like, fuck yeah, it is.
No, lie.
No, it's better than anything you've had recently. I mean, because it's just a fun film, and you're getting more for like the extra nerds like us who have read comics and know enough about extra things. But because it just brings the fun, I couldn't help but be in a state of euphoria at the end of this film both times.
I mean, I really don't have too much to add. That's basically how I was. I saw it Friday morning. I saw it Saturday morning. Friday morning, I left it, and all I could do the rest of the day was think about it. And I finally told my wife, I said, I got to go back. I got to go back and watch it again. So my son and I went back the second time. And I told my son as soon as we walked out, I said, I think I like that even more the second time I went in, even already knowing what was going to happen.
I would agree.
Yeah, and I think it actually seeing the second time, I felt like I was able to absorb maybe even more of a wider picture because I'm not trying to take in so much detail.
Yeah, there was a lot in this movie. I remember my first reaction coming out of the theater was, texting Joseph, letting him know, hey, dude, you need to see this movie more than once. I think my biggest takeaway coming out too was just how much of a fan service movie this was and how rewarding it was to see as a fan because you got so much more out of it. My wife went to go see it with me as well, and she enjoyed it. But I just know that I got so much more out of it because I understood all of the different references and meta jokes and stuff like that. And it's probably the most rewarding film in terms of fan service than anything else that has ever existed. It's like even more than Endgame.
Definitely more than The Flash, for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
My big takeaway walking out of the movie was, I was entirely pleased with what they had done here. I did feel like there was a story structural problem that kind of Deadpool 2 had as well, where there were almost 4 acts or more of like a prequel, as it were. Like everything kind of felt more episodic or like a series of comic issues than it did like a typical narrative structure.
Why is that a problem?
It does make the film feel a little bit long. And I think that moment at the end when Deadpool's like, hang tight, folks, we're almost there. At that moment, I was like, okay, yeah, I am kind of feeling that. Because you had what felt like a big third act fight with the resistance against Cassandra Nova's army. And then you had almost an epilogue going back to Deadpool's universe. You had the Deadpool core fight. And then even after that, you had the big sacrifice to destroy the Time Ripper machine. So it felt episodic. There was a lot of sequences strung together as opposed to watching a singular movie narrative.
I will say this. The first time I watched it, I felt that. I felt the length. The second time I watched it, went by like that.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I think that has to do with you already having the right expectations for what the story is going to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely didn't mind that as much the second time I watched the movie.
And each of those beats gave you something exciting, gave you something fun. I mean, because you had that climactic, oh my God, Blade and Elektra and Gambit are all kind of getting their hero moment, and that's cathartic. And then you're like, okay, oh shit, I'm still going on a journey here. But then you're getting that bus fight and that Deadpool core fight, which is incredible. And then you're like, okay, shit, we are still going here. But then you have the emotional tie of their kind of sacrifice, which wasn't a sacrifice, but that didn't bother me, honestly, because it works for Deadpool. But that emotional moment, it hits you in a lot of different feels. Like, this film did a great job, even though I agree, I'm actually with you guys 100%, where it kind of felt like, okay, we got another thing to conclude and then another thing to conclude. But I got satisfied conclusions from each of them.
Yeah. The good thing about the sort of episodic nature of the story is that you got a lot of great moments at the end of each like little beat, right? Yeah. There are so many moments in this movie that will be contenders for the Brothers Awards that we do at the end of the year. There was the scene where they're sacrificing themselves listening to Madonna. Like, I got chills, I got teary, like watching those moments of them thinking of like their entire arcs culminating in that moment, thinking they're about to die. I got chills during the Deadpool core fight scene. What was your favorite moment from the movie, would you say, if you had to pick one?
I want to say the one that got the biggest reaction from me in the theater was the bait and switch of Chris Evans. Was the Captain America to flame. When he said flame on, I about shit myself, because they did such a great job of peppering in Captain America multiple times before, and Deadpool's love of him, which is pretty comic accurate. And then, oh my God, yes, it's Cap. And then, oh, it's not. And I was floored.
I fucking died in the theater, and I can't believe I didn't see it coming. But right when you get that reveal, that's when you figure out, oh, I know exactly what this movie is going to be here, at least in the Void setting.
Yes.
It's just going to be a ton of cameos and all of this. Just so much fun. Just so much fanboy excitement. Yeah. Like, I definitely had to grab my special sock.
Yeah.
Because it was so good. I didn't think in a million years that Chris Evans would be playing Johnny Storm again. It was so good.
I wouldn't say that it was spoiled for me, but I'd heard numerous people say, hey, he could come back as Johnny Storm because, they're doing this here. So that was kind of in the back of my mind. It was still a surprise, but I was like, oh, of course they did this, because it's the funny thing to do. The thing that got the biggest reaction out of me, other than the initial very first trailer, I didn't watch anything. I didn't watch anything else. I did have a couple of things spoiled for me just because social media sucks.
Big time.
X-23 was spoiled for me, and that was without having seen the trailer. I really was disappointed that they spoiled that. The thing that got the biggest reaction out of me was Wesley Snipes.
Oh, yeah. That shocked the hell out of me.
I literally shouted, holy shit, in the theater right next to my 14-year-old son, who surprisingly didn't hear me because everyone else in the theater was also yelling, holy shit.
It was one collective holy shit. So Wesley Snipes was actually spoiled for me. And I messaged you guys on Facebook Messenger. I said, stay off the goddamn internet because there are spoilers out there. I had opened up Instagram and I saw the clip of Wesley Snipes, and it was terrible. Unforgivable. At that point, I just completely did not get on Instagram or anything until I saw the movie.
It was a great feeling. It was another kind of chills down the back. Like, oh my God, he's back. Oh my God.
Where's my white pants?
Exactly. Because we're never fucking getting Mahershala Ali.
I know. That's like 10 years in the making now already, almost. But I'm excited for Mahershala Ali's. I thought it was a great meta joke when Wesley Snipes was like, there's only one blade and there's only going to be one blade. Yeah. It was so good. And I was like, I hope that's not actually true, because we got to get that Mahershala Ali movie.
Yeah.
I already knew that Elektra was going to be in the film because that was revealed by the trades back when she was actually cast, but I did not know that Channing Tatum was going to be in the movie. What was your reaction to Channing Tatum's look, accent, all this stuff?
I would say pleasantly surprised. I felt like his headpiece was a little thick. That part took a little away from it. Also, I don't think his hair was big enough. I feel like his hair needed to be bigger, be taller. There needed to be more. His accent, I thought, was fine. It's not an easy accent to do unless you're a native speaker. So the shock of him being in it was fun. It was the fun surprise. It wasn't the holy shit surprise that Blade was, but it was the fun surprise of oh, we get to do this. This is cool. I thought what they did with the visual effects with his cards was cool. Yeah. I thought his fighting was fine. I thought the lines he had to say was fine. Like I said, I thought his accent was fine. It wasn't perfect. But the thing that took me, not out of it, but the thing that bothered me the most was I thought the headpiece was too thick. Yeah. And for some reason, that kind of bothered me.
Yeah, I always think of Gambit as just having a very gaunt facial structure. And when you combine Channing Tatum's like rounder face, especially as he gets older, with that headpiece, I just wish they got rid of the headpiece. I think it would have been fine just with the jacket.
I agree. Or make it out of cloth. It didn't have to be out of leather.
Yeah, or a rubber or whatever it was. I thought that moment of Channing Tatum in there was another perfect moment for us, the extra nerds, the people who really have given in the time to not just watch all the movies and shows, because we've all done that, and so many people have done that, but the people who know, oh, this is the extra stuff that we know this is going to happen, or that, all this stuff is rumored, or et cetera, et cetera. This was for the real deep cut people. And when he was talking, I loved his bad accent. I mean, it wasn't even that bad, but because even when you watch X-Men 97 and that stuff, it's a real hard accent. And even Rogues, that Louisiana accent's real fucking tough to do. And so them just making fun of it, and also the meta jokes of fourth wall breaks of who's your dialect coach, like all that stuff, I thought it played off exactly the way a Deadpool movie can do it, in a very interesting and funny and meta way. But like my wife, who was sitting next to me, had no idea, like, well, why the hell is Channing Tatum in this? And I was like, well, you see, because he was cast and he was supposed to be in it. And like all the jokes of him, like, yeah, and some people feel like they were born in the void. And I'm like, because he never got the movie, honey. Do you get it? Like that was great for us. It was for that extra level of deep nerd that even just the casual fan wouldn't get. They would be fine with it. But like us, we got a little extra boner from that.
Yeah, just an extra inch there.
The Channing Tatum reveal was actually probably my favorite moment in the entire film, because when I saw the card, I was like, oh shit, they brought Taylor Kitsch back. And then sure enough, it's fucking Channing Tatum. I was like, what? It was amazing. Hands down, my favorite cameo. I gotta say, my least favorite cameo, though, was fucking Henry Cavill as Wolverine. What? I did not appreciate that shit.
That was
the Wolverine was so good.
They broke my heart.
Well, I think DC and the executives broke your heart when they fired him.
Yeah. I'm going to insist everyone on the Discord that's part of Team Marvel now refer to Team DC as the shit fucks down the street.
Yes.
It was such a good moment. I remember people talking about Henry Cavill being cast as the new Wolverine in the MCU. I was like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. That's just wishful fanboy thinking. But apparently the rumor got enough traction to actually warrant a cameo in this movie. And I'm totally here for it.
And he seems like such a nerd guy that he'd be down for that kind of stuff. Because, he loves all this kind of nerd stuff.
I do have to say that they did drop the ball on one major cameo that they could have and totally should have done, and that was Joe Manganiello as Deathstroke. You could have played off of that with I came first, you're a variant of me kind of thing.
Yeah. Now, we only need so many DC cameos in a Marvel movie, okay? All right.
Whatever.
I will tell you one cameo I was expecting and highly disappointed I didn't get. I didn't get Taylor Swift as Dazzler, and I was very disappointed I didn't get that. I was totally expecting that.
I was too, actually. Well, I mean, there was so much buzz around Taylor Swift being in the movie, and she even sent out an Instagram post congratulating Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively and Hugh Jackman and everybody on their movie and stuff like that. So yeah, it felt very strange that she wasn't in there.
I wasn't actually expecting her to be in the film per se. I was expecting to see her in an end credit scene, in just a throwaway thing that didn't really matter. I was not disappointed with the end credit scene we got.
Yeah, certainly.
It was exactly like my high school senior class video that they put on at the end of the year.
Oh yeah, the mid credits.
With Green Day, it was the exact same video.
Yeah, but a perfect cathartic moment for the end of an era, if you will.
Right. Made me feel sad.
Yeah. Well, the movie turned out to be a love letter to the superhero films of the early 2000s and late 90s, the Fox universe, the New Line stuff with Blade. So it was bittersweet in that way. We're saying goodbye to all that nostalgia. And now we're in this new consolidated MCU universe, Sony notwithstanding.
Fucking Sony.
The end credit scene with Johnny Storm, though, I don't know if it was quite worth staying for, but it did make me laugh my ass off. I love that this was a Boston version of Johnny Storm, and Chris Evans brought out his natural Boston accent. That was good stuff.
Yeah, I didn't need it to set up anything new. I was happy to just kind of add an extra laugh. That was good for me.
Yeah.
In a world where fantasies collide and heroes clash, one podcast network rises above the rest. Prepare yourself for the ultimate showdowns in comic books, video games, movies, and anime. The Dynamite Podcast Network presents Console Combat, where video game legends brawl every Monday. Dynamic Duel, where comic book titans smash every Tuesday. Max Destruction, where TV and action heroes battle every Wednesday, and Sendro World, where anime champions clash every Thursday. Join us as we speculate on the matches and, armed with the power of mathematical simulations, discover who will emerge victorious. Visit dynamicpodcast.com, where we settle the debate and settle the score.
Let's go ahead and get into our character breakdown, starting with Deadpool, aka Wade Wilson, played by, of course, Ryan Reynolds, who is Marvel Jesus as far as I'm concerned. He is, I think, Marvel Studios' biggest A-list talent now that Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans have left, although, RDJ is coming back, but I'm trying not to think about that too much.
Lame.
So lame.
Super lame.
Yeah, this is the largest R-rated opening weekend of all time.
Yeah, I think it's projected to make around 205 million, and it's like the 8th biggest opening worldwide of all time. It's going to make $1 billion, which is really good for, people who are talking about superhero fatigue.
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds is a gem. He's just as in command of the Deadpool role as, say, like Robert Downey Jr. was for Iron Man, or, Christopher Reeve for Superman back in the 70s or something like that. He just very much personifies the role, and not even just Deadpool, even like the other variants that he played, like Nice Pool and stuff like that. I thought that was hilarious.
I forgot about Nice Pool.
Van Milder.
He was like, regeneration. What?
Yes.
The first time through, I wasn't all that big on Nice Pool, but the second time through, I think it worked better for me.
Sure.
I think one of my biggest laughs in the movie was when Deadpool killed him on purpose.
Oh, yeah.
Like early in the movie, they had set that up because he was like, your dog's going to want me as an owner in case anything happens to you.
Right.
And he's like, what could happen to me? And he's like, all kinds of things. So you knew it was kind of lurking there in the background. And I think this was the most sinister we've ever seen Deadpool was in this movie. Like when he got Johnny Storm killed and then he got Nice Pool killed. It's kind of funny, especially the part where he's like, you're going to live, goddammit, shout it. And he's like, I'm going to live. I was laughing my ass off at that point.
The thing that made me laugh the most, and it happens very quickly, after Wolverine walks past the Deadpool core with the dog and they're not shooting him, when they cut back, he's performing CPR in a headless body.
Yes, that was
and it only
great.
happens for a few seconds. But I was giggling for so long to the point where my son was like, what is so funny? And I was like, I'll tell you later.
And then, following that up with him brandishing the gold-plated guns, that was just so good.
Oh, yeah.
Again, which was set up earlier. You knew he was going to end up with those.
Right.
My favorite part with Nice Pool was still when he looked at the camera, it was like, the proposal. And Deadpool was like,
just
is
out
that
of
what you
nowhere.
think I do?
So Deadpool's arc here, I think, was about coming out of depression. He got rejected from the Avengers, which was just the final straw for him in that moment that put him into a downward spiral, leading to his retirement. It cost him his relationship with Vanessa. But he comes out of his funk, getting abducted by the TVA, finding new purpose. He saves his friends and his timeline from destruction, in the process bonding with a larger team of heroes, like Wolverine and the Resistance, culminating in his attempt to sacrifice himself for those he loves. But here's the thing. In Deadpool 2, he saved Cable's timeline from Fire Fist, in the process bonding with a larger team of heroes, Cable and X-Force, which culminated in his self-sacrifice. Like, he died in that movie and Cable brought him back. So the character growth that he went through in Deadpool and Wolverine was pretty damn similar to the character growth he already had in Deadpool 2. Like, if you substitute Wade's sadness over Vanessa's death with Wade's depression over his lack of meaning, you have almost nearly identical arcs.
I don't disagree.
I found it's more about sacrifice for others, not sacrifice for himself. I felt like this one was a little bit more about himself, finding his personal growth.
They had that specific moment where Happy talks about the Avengers, they're Avengers because people need them. And at the end, when he is doing the Time Ripper thing, he says, I'm doing it for others, finally. It's his growth for trying to put others above him.
I think that's valid.
Fuck it, I don't care. It was still good.
It's still a great movie. It's still, yeah.
I don't care.
agree.
I noticed that as I was watching it. I thought that was really similar to the second film. You just kind of replace the foil that was Cable with the foil that is Wolverine. Though I have to say, I think Deadpool and Wolverine played off each other a lot better than
Much better.
Deadpool and Cable.
So even if it was the same one, we can agree they did it better in this movie?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Can I add to that real quick, though?
Sure.
That's Deadpool. Deadpool constantly wants to be the hero and then gets in his own way. And he tries to be the hero, then gets in his own way.
Yep.
Wants to be a part of the team, gets in his own way. That's his whole fucking arc over and over and over again. So it doesn't bother me that it's the same thing we're getting, but it's done better. So,
well, Deadpool is a type of character that you don't necessarily need to take seriously in that way. So in some regards, he's above this type of criticism. Mm-hmm. And that could either be to the character's detriment, or you guys are big Deadpool fans. There's a reason that he's such a popular character, is because he's so charismatic and endearing no matter what he goes through.
And you don't want him to change that much. Right. You kind of want him to keep getting in his own way.
Yeah. Valid. But to get to Hugh Jackman and Wolverine, I totally see him as the heart of this film. He actually had a fantastic character arc because he's also battling depression here, which manifested with alcoholism and self-loathing. His aim was to seek redemption for his past when he abandoned his X-Men team who died. And though he wasn't able to fix what happened in his timeline, he was able to help save Wade's, and it was enough to help him get through his depression and find a new life in that timeline with his new surrogate daughter, X-23. I was really glad that they brought her back into Wade's timeline as well, because then he could kind of go through the same arc that Logan did in the movie Logan.
Yeah, the arc for Wolverine is really the one that matters here, as I've kind of already set up. Deadpool doesn't do these arcs all that well. You know, he just kind of is going to revert to his, I'm the funny mouth and I kill people and all that kind of stuff. Like, say, for the end of Deadpool 1, where he kills Ajax at the end, even though Colossus is giving him that speech of, we don't kill them, 4 or 5 moments, and then he shoots Ajax in the head. In this movie, it parallels that, but Wolverine is the one who says, no, we're not going to kill Cassandra Nova. He's the real hero. He is the one who goes through this arc. And because he is the important one, he is the hero guy. He is that hero type, and he is the anchor being. I think it totally makes sense why he is the one who goes through more of the character arc than Deadpool.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do have to say, though, that I thought the reason for why he was so depressed and how he failed everybody was going to be much more interesting. And I was at first initially disappointed that it was basically, he went to a bar and while he was away, everyone died. I thought it was going to be something more like in Logan, where, Professor X started to get seizures and those seizures kind of killed everyone. So for it to be something so simple, again, initially, I found kind of disappointing, but later on, I kind of appreciated how simple it was, I guess, because that really wasn't what the story was about. All he needed to do was kind of feel that survivor's guilt, which Logan is bound to do because he has such a high longevity.
Yes.
He was going to outlive everyone anyway, and they could have gone with that even, but that ultimately wasn't as important to his story arc as the fact that he did grow.
We don't need to make things more convoluted than they are. I thought it was pretty well done.
Well, it wasn't just that he got drunk and kind of ran away. He talked about how he basically went into a berserker rage and he killed fucking everybody. And then all humans turned on mutants afterwards because of that.
That's true.
So he started that because of his rage. He was the downfall of all mutants.
And to add on to what Adam said, the first time he tells you what happens, he says he was away. When they revisit it at the end, he actually says, it wasn't just that I was away, I walked away. Mm-hmm. I heard them basically being killed, and I walked away. Then when I saw the bodies, I went into my rage. So it was not just that he happened to be away, it was his active choice to walk away from it.
Yeah.
And then his guilt with that.
And that's why he was wearing the suit, the pajamas, as Deadpool called them, because he felt guilty about rejecting that earlier. What did you guys think of the suit?
God damn, that suit looks good.
Yeah.
I loved the suit. I have thoughts on the cowl.
The cowl, when I saw it, I was like, of course, another extra inch just came on me.
Yeah, right.
But after a while, you kind of realize, okay, that's why they didn't do this.
Right.
It's the eyes. Eyes. Also, it's hard to make that mask a perfect size because I feel like the wings needed to be slightly bigger to make them look more comic accurate, but at the same time, they would look ridiculous.
The blowjob handles?
Yes, if they were actually that big. So it was a hard thing to do in live action. I think they did the absolute best they could. Sure. They stuck to the white eyes because they're already doing it with Deadpool, although I feel like they didn't make them as expressive as Deadpool's are, because I know that the way they do that is he actually takes the eyepieces out when they're filming and they track his eyebrow movements so that Deadpool's eyes are expressive. I don't feel like they did that with Wolverine's, and I wish they had.
Yeah, I think the issue was his eyeline was always off. It was like he was blind when he should have been looking at Wade. But because of the wings, you have that kind of line that really shows you where his head is pointing. And it's kind of an issue in live action.
Kind of like Batman.
Yeah, but he can turn his neck. I thought his Wolverine suit was great. It did look a little football patty at times. I actually think I slightly preferred the brown and yellow, the mustard and brown one that they used for that short little moment for the Hulk thing. I was like, that looks a little bit more simpler. I think I liked it just a slightly bit better. But still, super exciting to see him in a more accurate costume for sure. That was great.
I kind of feel like the whole reason they did the Deadpool core scene at the end, and I could be wrong, was just so that they could show the mask. I kind of feel like that whole scene didn't really need to be in the movie. I think that's when the movie started to feel long for me. I don't really care about the Deadpool core personally.
Well, that's because you're wrong.
I think if they just put the mask on earlier when they were going up against Cassandra Nova's team, I think that would have been perfectly fine. I would have been happy with that. It all kind of felt a little bit extra.
I can see where you're coming from because the Deadpool core was shoehorned in. They could have immediately just gone to destroy the Time Ripper because they already had really their third act fight back in the Void. But here's the thing. How can you have a multiversal Deadpool movie and not have the Deadpool core? You have to.
I was just going to say they had to have them because this is the only place you can do it. Anywhere else, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Secret Wars.
Nah. Well, because that would take over too much.
Yeah,
it's
there's going to be too
Yeah.
much in Secret Wars.
Too much Deadpool.
Yeah. But I mean, they tied it in well enough. They set it up, multiple times. When we first met Nicepool, he kind of alluded to it. And then Cassandra Nova said Deadpools are a dime a dozen here, but we do, this is like our first Wolverine. So we got little glimpses. And then when they came out for the Deadpool nerds like us, I was in there looking at like, oh my God, which ones do I recognize? Which ones have I seen in the comics? There's only one I'm going to mention that disappointed me that wasn't in there because I imagine John was as well. If he thought of it, is Agent X I would have loved to see him somewhere in the background as well, but that's it.
I don't see him as a Deadpool variant. I know he is, but I kind of see him. I see him as his own thing.
Sure.
So
fair.
Oh, wait, Agent X is the one that was in Wolverine Origins, right?
No, I don't.
No.
Agent X, I don't think.
You're talking about Agent Zero.
Yeah, no, Agent Zero is the one from, that's a totally different character.
Ignore Jonathan. He's a DC fan. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Agent X was a very small run, kind of an offshoot from the Cable and Deadpool that ran from like the early 2000s. And John and I are fans, but no one else would have gotten it. But I thought it would have been a great spot to put it on there.
Let's go ahead and move on to the villains of the piece. I think the Deadpool films, their main weakness has always been the villains.
Sure.
Especially Deadpool 2. I didn't love either Cassandra Nova or Mr. Paradox.
Dude, I loved Cassandra Nova. What are you talking about?
I'm with Jonathan. Cassandra Nova, I really liked.
I guess I've never really been a fan of Cassandra Nova from the comics. Now, she was a Grant Morrison creation. She's the twin of Professor Charles Xavier. In the comics, I always saw her as more bitter and nasty and stuff like that. But here, she was like deceptively sweet. And I guess that kind of threw off my preconceived notions of what the character should and would be like in the movie.
I don't know. It sounded like maybe she was still a little bitter, but I mean, it's not going to be the exact same thing.
I mean, she was evil.
I will say that shit sounds like something Grant Morrison would do. So I totally understand that. I'm actually with them. I actually really liked her. I liked her better even the second time than the first time because there's a lot of things that I noticed about her the second time. Some of the mannerisms in her facial expressions were really good. The fact that they actually elongated her fingers, which made her seem more creepy. She was fairly creepy.
I thought the actress did a good job.
Yes, I agree. I'll be honest, I'm kind of glad we didn't get like an all-out fight at the end with her because by the time we got to that, I was already fought out. Also, realistically, they weren't going to win a fight with her. They had to do something out of the ordinary in order to, say finish her off sounds weird. But I'd finish her off.
It's a Deadpool review. You're fine.
Especially when she talked about flicking her bean.
Yeah, to Enya. Oh, man. Yeah, I was happy there.
Now I got a new box set I got to go find.
Yeah, I'm going to listen to White Flag tonight.
There's a box set?
White Flag is Dido, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, you're right. That's Dido. My bad. I always confuse them.
Come on, man.
It's the same person. Fine.
I thought the way they portrayed Cassandra Nova's powers was really fascinating here because, she has all the powers of Professor X in addition to his potential latent powers according to his DNA. So she has telekinesis. She has the ability to phase. And I thought the way that they combined those aspects here by giving her more tactile telepathy and she has to like phase into their minds in order to read their minds. That was creepy as hell.
Oh,
it was fantastic. It was incredible.
Very cinematic. Great decision to do that. Absolutely horrifying.
It's just a new great way to visualize telepathy without doing the same old boring thing of, two people standing across from each other. One of them raises their fingers to their forehead and then, they read their thoughts.
I guess to move over to Paradox, the other villain, I actually really like the actor. I thought he was wonderful. I liked, the very Britishness about him, and he's the white collar villain in this one. I do think he had some motivational issues.
For sure.
I thought it was kind of strange that they're going off grid and they're going to build this Time Ripper and prune stuff themselves. But yet he also decided to pull Deadpool out because his bosses told him to. Like, why are you listening to your bosses on this when you're just going to turn around and not listen to them for other stuff?
Right.
I will say this. So the one thing they say is that basically that timeline was going to get pruned. It was just going to take 2,000 years for it to happen. But I just think he just wasn't patient. Also, my first thought was, why would he have so many of these people with him? Because he had a whole section of people. However, if we're taking this to kind of happen not long after Loki season 2, their decision to change the way they do things is a very stark change in a very fast time. And I could see that being iffy for people who were used to doing the same thing for probably thousands of years at that point and not wanting to change and say, oh, this guy wants to go back to the way we did do it. I'm more comfortable there. Let's go with him.
Yeah. It's not a good motivation, though. And it's my biggest issue with the film. His idea was to destroy Wade's timeline because it was more efficient to do so, and it would impress him to his higher-ups so that he would become leader of the TVA. But since Loki took over the timelines and they're allowing these branches to grow and a multiverse to exist, the TVA's function is no longer to prune timelines.
You're assuming that he knows about Loki.
Even if he doesn't, his directive would be to let the multiverse thrive. The TVA has reset charges that they used to prune timelines all the time. I don't understand why he had to use this Time Ripper device. It was very strange and definitely not in accordance with a lot of what we saw in the Loki television series.
Also considering that, they're in the TVA, time doesn't exist. There was no reason why they were like, oh, we have to rush this 2,000 year thing.
Exactly.
That doesn't make sense.
And it was clear that even if he did prune this timeline with the Time Ripper, he's not going to impress anybody with it. They would have actually admonished him, and they did, for what he tried to do. So it just made no sense. And because his whole motivation doesn't make sense, the story almost falls apart because of that. Also, I have an issue with anchor beings. The idea of anchor beings, it makes me wonder how any timeline branch survives more than a couple thousand years, because humans only have so long of a lifespan. The idea of anchor beings means that eventually any timeline branch is going to die, and that the multiverse is then essentially self-containing. And the TVA beforehand would seem irrelevant prior to Loki taking on his throne.
I don't know. That's reading a lot into it, I think. The issue of anchor beings didn't really bother me. I actually liked the idea that they exist and that Wolverine would be one of them. I'm sure there is some kind of, paradoxical nature to it, but that didn't bother me so much as we never learned who Paradox was answering to or working for, because it seemed like he really wasn't answering to the TVA. He was answering to some kind of shadow organization, perhaps within it or even outside of it. And we never got that closure.
Well, he was working for himself. He was selfish. He wanted to be in charge of the TVA. It was all bullshit.
So then why pull out Deadpool? Why pull out Deadpool at all?
Because his higher-ups wanted Deadpool to be part of the Sacred Timeline because it's part of his destiny. He has some kind of big role to play in the Sacred Timeline's future.
Oh, yeah. He has to die in Thor's arms.
Yeah, exactly. So he could die. The motivational problems were there, but at the same time, it didn't anger me like it seems to have angered you, Joseph, because at the end of it, it's a fucking Deadpool movie, and I was able to kind of cut that cord from my head and be like, all right, fine, fuck it.
Also, I'm gonna say this is why I think you're wrong. First of all, you're assuming that all the anchor beings are happening now, instead of maybe one timeline, anchor being doesn't happen for another 5,000 years, in which case that timeline doesn't get trimmed. Also, everything up until this point, up until Loki, was one timeline, yes?
Correct. Yeah, it was the Sacred Timeline. Everything else was being pruned.
So in this case, anchor beings is probably a new thing because they have all these different timelines. Some people say if it doesn't happen on screen, it shouldn't happen. But to me, I don't need to hear about them discovering anchor beings. They could just say, hey, we've discovered it. Each of these timelines has an anchor being. So all of these little variant timelines are not all going to be the same length.
I think it just brings it back to even if that were the case, the TVA never needed to exist because the multiverse was self-sustaining in that sense that eventually all errant timelines would eventually die.
But Kang started the pruning because he didn't want the multiversal wars. And so even with over these thousands of years, the war still might have happened. And so it got pruned because he, knew that even the sacred timeline would get exploded. And so that was kind of why he started the prune stuff and the TVA. So, I mean, yes, it could be self-sustaining, but it wasn't about it being self-sustaining. It was about Kang stopping the war.
The other Kangs.
Yeah.
And now that is the TVA's new primary function, is stopping the multiversal war. Mm-hmm. It's all convoluted.
Yes,
Super.
As John said.
So convoluted.
Multiverses suck.
I think that does it for the character breakdown. So let's go ahead and get into our story highlights. Deadpool visits Logan's grave, where he's attacked by a group of Time Variance Authority hunters. In a flashback to when Deadpool used Cable's time travel device, he ends up on the Sacred Timeline in 2018, where he tries to join the Avengers in an interview with Happy Hogan, but is rejected. I thought it was really interesting that typically the Deadpool films don't take the credit scenes seriously. And this one didn't, but it actually had actual credits for the people that were involved in the production. And I kind of missed those gags, but it was really funny to see Deadpool dancing to NSYNC.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was a ton of fun. They set up what you're getting. You're getting a lot of dumb fun. And I agree. As the first two movies, they had the fake title cards, and this one they used actually real ones. But I do specifically want to mention, because of that scene, all of us were worried about how the fuck are we going to respectfully bring and deal with Logan, and then we don't. And it's so perfectly fucking done that way, and only a way a Deadpool could do it is, we're not going to be respectful. We're going to literally play with his fucking bones, desecrate his body, and we love it. And I love every second of that.
It was so good.
Yeah. I was horrified.
I never understood the confusion, because it always said that Logan takes place in the future, 2029 or some shit. There is nothing to say that Deadpool and Wolverine had to take place after that. So I was never confused about how they were going to include him in the story, because it's fucking time. Logan was set in the future. Jesus H. Christ, people. It is not that difficult. I have the same issue with people who couldn't figure out why in Endgame affecting the past does not affect the future. And I talked to so many people who were like, I just understand. I'm like, it is not fucking hard.
It's not.
It's not hard to understand that when you move to the past, that past is not your past. It is now your future, and it is a completely different timeline, essentially, in this case.
But it's funny because Deadpool 2, they use Back to the Future style, because the bear that Cable was carrying was burned, and then when he sacrificed himself at the end, the bear turned bright, and it's showing that his kid didn't die. So they granted, at that time, they wasn't part of the MCU. But
you could also say that it was not cyclical. He went back and changed it, and what he went forward to was a completely new timeline.
And look at Days of Future Past as well. The way they handle time there.
Yeah.
I guess time works differently depending on which branch of the Marvel multiverse you're in.
Yeah. I was one of the people who was not thrilled when I found out that Hugh Jackman was returning to the role of Logan, not because I was wondering how they were going to do it story-wise, but because we already had that cathartic goodbye for the character. But I will admit that I am happy that he decided to make the return back, and that they brought him back in such a fantastic way.
I liked the heartfelt scene of when Deadpool was trying to join the Avengers, because you really felt like he wanted it. And I thought that was a great bit of acting by Ryan Reynolds.
That confused me. That really confused me. Okay, so I get he breaks the fourth wall, right? And so he would know about the Avengers, but the fact that they established him as being on Earth 10,005, whatever it was. Yeah. So he traveled through the multiverse to Earth 616.
He's wearing Cable's thing.
Okay.
So that's how he moved across.
But so he was willing to leave his friends and everything that he had saved to be a part of the Avengers. And yet when he was offered that opportunity later on, that's when he got upset.
6 years changes a man. Okay.
That's a great question.
I didn't think of that.
I guess my assumption is that he probably would have wanted to bring his friends and family over to the Sacred Timeline with him if he got the job.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah. In 2024, in his native timeline, Wade works as a used car salesman with his friend Peter, who throws Wade a surprise birthday party with all their friends, including his ex-girlfriend Vanessa. A group of TVA hunters show up and take Wade to meet Mr. Paradox, an agent who offers him a place on the Sacred Timeline. Paradox informs Wade that due to the death of Logan, who was his timeline's anchor being, his universe is slowly dying. He goes on to tell Wade that he intends to speed up the process using a Time Ripper device to prune Wade's universe in order to improve the TVA's efficiency so he can get promoted to the head of the organization. Unwilling to see his friends die, Wade steals the TVA temp pad to visit Logan's grave. I love the scene when the TVA hunters show up at the party and he's like, this isn't like Pretty Women. We're going to be kissing.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, this is the one where he talked about pegging's not new for me, but new for Disney, right? That same, and then the wink to the camera. I mean, that's perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Hilarious. Deadpool travels the multiverse looking for a Wolverine variant substitute to save his timeline. He visits Short Wolverine, Brown Suit Wolverine, Age of Apocalypse Wolverine, Patch, Crucifixion Wolverine, Old Man Logan, and Cavalrine before coming upon an alcoholic Wolverine whom he brings back to the TVA. Mr. Paradox calls this variant the worst Wolverine, who abandoned his X-Men during their tragic deaths. He then uses a time stick to send Deadpool and Wolverine to the void at the end of time.
And just wanted to reiterate, Cavalrine is awesome. he's a better Wolverine than he ever was a Superman.
The Crucifixion Wolverine was dark as hell. I mean, that's like a classic, iconic cover from the comics.
I remember the cover
when the X-Men went up against the Reavers. But like seeing it in real life, I was like, holy shit, you don't want to be that Wolverine for sure. Mm. It also made me realize that I don't want them to actually cast a 5'3" actor to play the character.
No,
seeing Short Wolverine.
That was hilarious. I was cracking up the whole time just because of that, and then I stopped laughing when I saw Cavalrine.
Sucker. Sorry.
In the void, Deadpool and Wolverine fight before Deadpool promises that if they escape the void, they can not only save his timeline, but also have the TVA save the X-Men from Wolverine's timeline. They're discovered by a Human Torch variant who tells Deadpool and Wolverine about Cassandra Nova, Professor X's twin sister who rules over the void, and about the resistance force in the Borderlands formed against her. The three are attacked by Cassandra Nova's gang, who brings them before her.
And I do think, obviously we mentioned already the importance of the cameos, getting some of these moments, but fan service was this movie. And we're getting things like, Wolverine and Deadpool fighting. We're getting Wolverine and Sabretooth going up against each other. And it didn't bother me. I know a lot of people might have wanted like an actual bigger battle with them. No, we got a lot of other battles down the line, so I didn't care. He just kind of sliced his head off pretty quickly. And, in the comics, he beheaded him, and that's how Sabretooth died. And so it didn't bother me one bit, but, I enjoyed seeing all those characters come in kind of one by one and be like, oh shit, there's Pyro. Oh shit, there's this person. There's that person. Oh, Tyler Maine's back. Those were wonderful moments. I mean, John and I have talked about nostalgia ad nauseum. I love nostalgia. I live on nostalgia. I mean, I can just feed off of it and I sustain myself.
You had a whole podcast about it.
Exactly. And so it makes me happy.
I have to say, next to Cavalrine, Tyler Maine as Sabretooth was the cameo that I was most disappointed in because I expected a bigger match between the two. I would have taken a bigger match between those two and maybe skipped the whole brawl in the Honda Odyssey fight.
Oh, you're fucking wrong.
The Odyssey was awesome.
Jesus Christ.
That was so good.
That was such a good fight.
The Honda Odyssey fucks, man.
Yes, the Honda Odyssey fucks.
I don't know.
So good. The first fight between Wolverine and Deadpool, where you see Wolverine like running on all fours and stuff, very animalistic. Holy shit,
Loved it.
Oh, that was so good.
See, there were too many fights between the two, and it just felt redundant to me because they're not hurting each other anyway. They have fucking healing factor. So why do I need to see this 5 fucking times in the movie?
You saw it twice in the movie.
Yeah, twice. And that's what they would do.
Was it twice?
That's what they would fucking do.
Yes, exactly.
Oh.
If you look behind Adam over his right shoulder, there is a cover of Deadpool holding up Wolverine's body because that is all they fucking did in the comics was fucking fight each other.
Wolverine 88. This is one of my favorite comic covers of all time.
Yep, same.
So fucking good.
Same.
Nice call. That's a great one. That is really good.
They can't hurt each other though. It's wasted film.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Have you ever just wanted to get out aggression? Have you never punched a wall or something? You know the wall's not going to win. Or you're not going to win against the wall.
I don't think I have. I did that just a few hours ago when I lost my microphone cable.
They just got to get out aggression. They don't care. They're definitely trying to kill each other, but they just know it's not going to happen. And I think the two fights were so drastically different in style because you get a wide brawl right out in the open for the first one, and then this really nice contained, almost defensive fight inside of the car. I loved it. I could have gone with another one.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, we kind of got it with the Deadpool Corps fight. It was Wolverine going up against a whole legion of Deadpools. Cassandra Nova kills the Human Torch and buries Wolverine underground with their telekinesis before using her tactile telepathy to read Deadpool's mind. Wolverine stabs Cassandra Nova, who heals and leaves the pair to be devoured by Eliath, a temporal entity that feeds on reality in the void at the end of time. Now, you guys all saw Loki, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm reminded of my son and I were discussing it after the second time, and he goes, the thing I don't understand is I didn't identify with like Eliath. What was his name? And I go, bitch, you saw Loki season 1. He goes, yeah, but I didn't really remember. I'm like, well, that's on you.
Why is that my problem?
Yeah.
For sure. Deadpool and Wolverine escape Eliath on a jet-powered Sentinel leg and decide to find the resistance force in the borderlands. They come across Dogpool and his owner Nicepool, who lends them his Honda Odyssey. This is so ridiculous to read out loud.
Wait, can we talk Dogpool for a little bit? The casting choice for Dogpool was perfect. The most ugly dog of all time. They actually won the 2023 Britain's Ugliest Dog Award.
Oh, really?
They cast that thing, yes. And it was perfect.
Definitely didn't look like the comics version of Deadpool, but yeah, I super appreciated this version.
I didn't care.
Yeah, I didn't care. Yeah. Wolverine learns that Deadpool lied about the possibility of the TVA fixing the tragedy of his timeline, and the two fight, knocking each other unconscious. They're discovered by an X-23 variant who takes them to the Borderlands, where they meet the resistance consisting of Elektra, Blade, and Gambit. Together, they decide to attack Cassandra Nova's Brotherhood to steal Juggernaut's helmet, which offers protection from her psychic powers. Speaking of Juggernaut, I'm really disappointed that Vinnie Jones didn't come back for his role.
A little bit,
Agreed.
yeah.
This random dude did nothing for me.
Like Vinnie Jones, Olivia Munn, I don't know if they didn't cast them because they really didn't need to. They didn't have speaking lines or anything like that, or if it was a budget concern. Maybe both.
Vinnie Jones was quoted in an interview saying they called him for the role, but he didn't want to do it because he didn't like wearing the Juggernaut suit. But he fucked up.
Why is he being a little bitch?
He is.
Yeah,
One
exactly.
day at work. Come on, Vinny.
I tell you what, it would have been funny. That whole thing was a Mad Max sort of pseudoism.
Yeah.
If they'd gotten the giant guy from Fury Road to be Juggernaut,
Was it Nathan Jones?
yeah, that would have been a funny twist.
I'd like
That would have
that.
been great.
At least then it would have kind of made sense with the Mad Max theme.
Honestly, Vinnie Jones probably just grew a beer gut, lost the abs after all these years.
And that's what
yeah,
CGI
well.
is for.
Yes.
That's fair.
Yeah.
The Resistance fights the Brotherhood, and X-23 is able to decapitate Juggernaut and throw Deadpool the helmet, while Cassandra Nova uses her telepathy to try and convince Wolverine to join her crew. Her psychic powers are subdued, then Pyro shoots her, revealed to be working with Mr. Paradox in exchange for a way out of the void. Knowing that she is their only way back home, Wolverine chooses to save her life. In exchange, she uses a Doctor Strange variant sling ring to open a portal out of the void.
I don't think it's a Doctor Strange sling ring. I heard a theory on this, and I'm choosing to believe it. She said like a half-rate magician. I think it is a variant of the shitty magician that they had in She-Hulk that they went to court over.
Johnny Blaze,
Yes.
or Donnie Blaze. Donnie Blaze.
I think it was him.
Yeah.
Could have been, yeah. I do feel like Strange would have put up a better fight.
I agree.
kind of thing. Yeah.
Now, can the sling rings go through time? Because I feel like then why do you need the time stone?
Oh.
Did they go through time?
Well, it went through time because like all time ends at that point. It's like the end point in time,
Oh.
right?
Then you know what? Yes, they can.
Okay.
Fuck it.
They can.
All right.
Shut up, Jonathan.
Damn it.
That's a good point.
Who cares?
It does seem like it would be really risky to send any sort of magician back to the void because they could just escape pretty easily, apparently.
Yeah.
Back in Deadpool's timeline, he and Wolverine learn that Mr. Paradox's Time Ripper device is nearly ready. Cassandra Nova also comes through the portal to take over the Time Ripper and destroy all time except for the void. Before Deadpool and Wolverine can stop her, the Deadpool Corps also comes through the portal and they're forced to fight. Peter, aka Peter Pool, comes in to stop the fighting.
Okay, so Peter Pool. This is the level of absurdity in Deadpool that I feel like just there's a certain absurdist humor threshold that I have, and Peter Pool was that. I was like, really?
No.
That ended the whole battle with the Deadpool Corps?
It made sense.
That?
The Deus Machina side of him, I didn't know I needed it, but I'm good with it. Like I'm totally fine with it.
Well, for some reason, Deadpool had such a high regard of Peter. Nobody knows why. He was his favorite member out of the X-Force. I like the idea of him having such a high regard for Peter, that all the Deadpools having a high regard for their universe's Peter, that they would stop fighting just for him. It made sense. Okay.
I'll say two things. One, they actually kind of, I don't know if this is directly related to this, but in my mind it is. They actually set up in the scene where they're the two are in the diner about Deadpool having ADHD, and being distracted by Peter is something that would absolutely distract all of the Deadpools and them having ADHD. Second of all, did you guys see the fucking cojones in his suit?
I tried not to, but they were there.
Impossible not
They
to,
were
yeah.
enormous.
The moose knuckle was...
They were like grapefruit sized. I think he has some kind of like illness or something.
Yeah.
Like they're swollen.
Elephantitis.
I hope I'm not misremembering this, but I think I could also see there was like a little patch under his belly button that was still open. You could kind of see the ring in the chain from the nipple rings and chain that they show earlier.
That's why it's fun.
That was such a good gag. And the fact that Hunter or I guess she's Judge B-15 now, was like really into him. I thought that was hilarious. She's like, damn, you look good in that suit.
Yeah, Peter pulls, man. Peter pulls.
Peter fucks. Let's be honest.
Yeah, he does. Like a Honda Odyssey.
Deadpool and Wolverine learn from Paradox that in order to stop Cassandra Nova, one of them will have to sacrifice themselves to destroy the Time Ripper device. They both attempt to make the sacrifice, allowing them to survive while destroying the machine and Cassandra Nova in the process. My least favorite part of the movie was the exposition given by Paradox on how antimatter and matter combine to destroy the universes, and only one person can stop it, and they must complete the circuit, but it will destroy them. And I'm like, shut up, just do it. I don't care how you explain it, just say you got to destroy the device.
I mean, they needed to go through that, though.
I will say, though, if they didn't say that, then enough of the nerds would bitch about why did it work and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it would have been
blah.
confusing. I was cool with it.
I like how the Time Ripper, the way it destroyed universes, was exactly like the spaghettification that we saw in Loki season 2. I always thought that was a cool effect. Yeah, that was cool.
And to me makes sense, because now you can identify what is happening in the world.
Yeah. TVA Judge B-15 arrives to arrest Mr. Paradox, revealing to Deadpool and Wolverine that the timeline is now healing due to Wolverine being the new anchor, or at least that's how I understood it. She returns the Resistance members from the Void to the respective timelines, including X-23, who joins Logan in Wade's timeline. They all celebrate with Wade's friends, and Wade reconciles with Vanessa, telling her he saved the universe for her. That's the end of the movie.
The heart of each of the Deadpool movies has been Vanessa. You know, that is his heart.
Sure.
And so
Yeah.
kind of always tying in his love for her and the romantic element, I was very good with that.
The whole relationship between the two when they weren't together was just heartbreaking to me. Like seeing Vanessa talking about her new boyfriend through work and stuff like that. And like the whole breakup conversation, he's like, just say it. Like, you don't want me anymore. Like, that was hard to watch, but it was really nice that it ended in the way that it did, where they're coming back together because they're crazy matches each other and they belong together. That brings us to the end of the review. I don't know if you guys have heard, but we're on Rotten Tomatoes now.
Yeah, yeah. You guys haven't said it every fucking second.
So I got to give my blurb. The titular duo delivers a 1-2 punch with their iconic performances and brutal action scenes in a chaotic, messy, and hilarious film full of fun surprises. I'm giving the movie 4 out of 5 stars, a fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Can I convince you otherwise?
I can be convinced.
Okay. So let's go through the Deadpool films. Deadpool 1, you gave a 4. Right. You gave Deadpool 2 a 3.5, and you gave this one a 4 now currently.
Okay.
I argue that this is the best Deadpool film of the bunch. I think this is the most amount of humor, the most amount of fan service, and overall the most fun film. Yes, it has some faults, which I will be willing to say maybe doesn't deserve a 5, but I want to push hard for that 4.5 because going through some of your other movies,
here it comes.
We've got...
Oh, no.
Yeah. Okay, buddy. Here it comes.
Buckle up, Buttercup.
Yeah. Blue Beetle was a 4. This is better than Blue Beetle. Simple as that. Across the Spider-Verse is an amazing film, 4.5. I think this is this is the right kind of Deadpool movie. This is the movie you need for Deadpool. I think that's why this deserves to be there. Guardians 3, 4.5. This is as good as Guardian 3 without question. Without question. Loki Season 2, 4.5. This is as good as Loki Season 2. Wakanda Forever. This is as good as, if not better than Wakanda Forever. I can absolutely tell you that. Multiverse of Madness. This is as good or better than Multiverse of Madness, which you gave a 4.5. Well, the Batman, you gave a 5, and I think that's fantastic. The Batman worked so well as a Batman movie. This works so well as a Deadpool movie. The one I really want to give it home to is you gave Eternals a fucking 4. You cannot give this the same score as the Eternals. This is a 4.5. Are you fucking kidding me?
I knew this was coming.
Reach within your soul, sir. You have to give this the proper rating.
So the way I do this is if I have no notes on a movie, really, if it's pretty good, I give it 4.5. If I have no notes and it exceeds my expectations, I give it a 5. If I have notes, but it's good, I give it a 4. That being said, any rating I ever really give could be plus or minus half a star.
See, I think this has notes, but also exceeds expectations. So it's kind of you got to bump it back up for that.
You're not wrong. And, you know, all the DC movies that you listed, I don't take any credit for because Jonathan always rates his shit half a star higher than he should.
You just said it fluctuates within a half a star.
Yeah, but you always round up. I always round down.
Okay.
In this case, you know, I debated heavily whether or not this should be 4 or 5 stars. And I'm willing to
4.5.
round up.
4.5. Come on with me, guys. 4.5. 4.5.
Even you, Jonathan. All right. Okay, sure. It's not a hard decision to make, really. I could easily go 4.5 with this review. It's a good movie. I had a lot of fun.
John, I'm assuming that you would also rate it 4.5, or would you go higher?
You know what I give it? I give it a 10. A 10. A fucking 10. I'm giving it a 5.
Right.
I'm giving it a 5. I want to go back and see it again. Very few of these movies do I actually want to go back and see it again while it's in theaters.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, cool. I can't wait to see that again when it comes out on Disney Plus or whatever. I want to go back and see it again. I've already seen it twice. I'm waiting for friends to call me to say like, hey, have you seen this? I'm going to be like, no, I haven't. I'm going to go back and see it again. It's a fucking 5 for me.
Because you want to be there when they gasp at fucking Flame On, when they see Wesley Snipes. You're going to get joy out of those moments from them as well.
Experiencing the movie again vicariously through people who haven't seen it yet is something that I love doing with these Marvel films. It's why I saw movies like the first Avengers and even the first Deadpool movie multiple times. I think I saw all of those like 6 times in the theater. I would absolutely see this movie again. It's really fun to experience. It's a perfect summer movie.
So a lot of people who have been following the podcast for a while know that I don't put as much stock into entertainment and quote unquote fun as I do story. Like I want to be moved in these theatrical experiences. I don't always, necessarily need to just be entertained.
You must be fun at parties.
I tell him that all the time.
I'm sorry, Jonathan. I really am. That was low-hanging fruit.
Now, that said, while the story I think was bare bones here, I did think it was touching. I did think it was moving. I do think there was heart to it. Absolutely. Entertainment is just the cherry on top. And so when Joseph and I were talking about, what would you rate this? That's usually all we talk about prior to doing a review is, what is your star rating? I was saying 4.5.
Yep.
And I think I'm going to stick with that because I do think this was intentionally so the ultimate Deadpool movie.
Yeah. Very fair. There you go. 4.5, guys.
Yeah, woo, we did it. We did it.
And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Adam has badgered me since we did that initial Deadpool review constantly about how I rated that movie wrong. So this is for you, man. This is for you.
Thank you.
But that does it for this review, guys. John, Adam, thank you guys so much for being able to do this review with us. We truly appreciate having you guys on board. We're big fans. And we're really sad that Blast from Our Past podcast is gone. I'm not going to beg you guys to bring it back because I know that you guys are busy. You're busy men. But I do expect it to eventually return one day.
Well, much like Hugh Jackman retiring from Wolverine, never say never.
Yes.
All right. Actually, I want to reach out and say for your final episode that you guys did for that show, you had a bunch of shows call in trying to advertise their podcasts so that viewers can leave your show and go onto theirs. I did not submit a recording in time, and that will be my lifelong regret that I didn't get to do that for your guys' final episode. I did think it was weird at the time when Adam was like, oh yeah, you guys could plug your show. I'm like, but I don't want to plug my show. I just want to talk about how much Blast from Our Past meant to me as a listener. So I never got around to it. I apologize. But yeah, your show meant a lot to me.
You know what the good thing is? There's still 300 episodes still out there that you can go back and revisit.
That's true. And I encourage listeners to do so and to listen to Throwback Trivia Takedown. And we'll have to have you guys again on sometime in the future.
For the Cavalrine movie, maybe.
You're right. There you go.
No. I'll just sit out on that review. I refuse. I'll boycott it.
Always a joy to have those guys on this show reviewing films with us. Remember to check out their podcast, Throwback Trivia Takedown, of which their first episode, Jonathan and I were actually contestants, and we went head-to-head on Marvel and DC trivia. It was a whole lot of fun. Go check them out.
Absolutely. That does it for this review. AJ9K, help close us out.
Thanks for listening to Dynamic Duel. Visit the show's website at dynamicduel.com and follow us on Instagram at Dynamic Duel Podcast. You can support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/dynamicduel and joining a tier that works for you, or by rating and reviewing Dynamic Duel on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, or on our website. Don't forget to listen to the other shows in the Dynamite Podcast Network, including Max Destruction, Senjo World, and Console Combat.
In our next episode, we're doing another review. Actually, we'll be doing reviews for a while. But this will be of My Adventures with Superman Season 2. I really enjoyed Season 1. I have not even started Season 2 yet. No, that's a lie. I've seen the first episode. Maybe first 2 episodes. Anyway, I'll be reviewing all of the episodes next week. But that does it for this episode. We want to give a big thanks to our executive producers, Ken Johnson,
John Starosky,
Zachary Hepburn,
Dustyn Balcom,
Miggy Matanguihan,
Brandon Estergard,
Nathaniel Wagner,
Levi Yeaton,
Austin Wesolowski,
AJ Dunkerley,
Scott Camacho,
Gil Camacho,
Adam Speas,
Andrew Schunk,
Dean Maleski,
Devin Davis,
and Joseph Kersting for helping make this podcast possible. We'll talk to you guys next week. Up, and away!
True believers.
She's a megalomaniacal psychotic asshole, a finger-licking, dead-inside, pixie-slapping, third-rate dime store nut milk. She can lick my goddamn cinnamon ring clean and kick rocks all the way to bald hell. In fact, I don't give a shit if she removes all my skin and pops me like some nightmarish blood balloon. If the last thing I do in this godforsaken cum-gutter existence is light that fuckbox on fire, I still won't die happy. That's right, I won't be happy until I've urinated on her freshly barbecued corpse and husk-fucked the charred remains while gargling juggernaut juggernuts. And you can quote me,